The student-led agitation in support of gun law reform is bringing about a nascent political shift on this once intractable issue. Those in the vanguard of this social movement are drawing on a long tradition in which institutions and laws seemingly impervious to change were challenged, reconsidered, and ultimately remade. The grassroots power of social activism has triggered shifts in public views on major issues and forced the parties to reckon with policies and politics in fundamentally fresh ways. 19th-century abolitionism, for example, which historian Adam Rothman called the primordial reform movement of American history, involved African American activists courageously protesting the evil of slavery while also developing an effective politics. Abolitionists, Rothman writes, engaged in the streets, in the courts, and at the polls. Some dug in on the cultural front, preaching abolition in oratory, literature, and music. And their political impact was notable. Some activists sought to pry open Jacksonian America's two-party political system by pressuring the Whigs and Democrats from within, or supporting third-party disruptions, beginning with the thoroughly abolitionist Liberty Party in 1840. These efforts finally paid off in the 1850s, as the Whigs crumbled and a new anti-slavery party, the Republicans, arose in the North. In the 1980s, social activism to increase research on AIDS showed how savvy social movements can thrust previously unacknowledged policy issues to the forefront of American life. In 1985, the gay and lesbian rights activist Cleve Jones asked marchers in San Francisco to write down the names of their friends who had died of AIDS. The project eventually evolved into a quilt that memorialized the thousands of lives lost to the disease, led to protests on the National Mall and at the National Institutes of Health, and forced medical researchers and lawmakers to confront AIDS as a major public health problem for the first time. The fact of agitation around a particular cause doesn't automatically yield legislative victories or shifts in the political climate, of course. Even victorious movements for social change have produced unfinished revolutions and mixed outcomes. The students, parents, and teachers from Parkland are plugging into a well-established but not always effective nexus of gun control organizations, including the Brady Campaign to Prevent Gun Violence and the Giffords Courage to Fight Gun Violence group, both launched by public figures who were shot in assassination attempts. And despite the movement at the state level toward greater gun control policy, the most likely outcome in Congress is that it will do little to nothing to respond to the demands of the student activists in the near term. Yet, when the history of this moment is written, it may well be that the young agitators will be described as the ones who are pushing the once immovable boulder of gun control off its resting place and pointing it downhill, where it will gain momentum.